Okay.
Okay, perfect. Well, thanks, Shamika, for the initiative and for organizing the event. We really appreciate that you took the time to give us the opportunity to explain how Valatam can help business owners and entrepreneurs to save time and money. Basically, that's our main goal. Um, we basically, well, first of all, I'm Victoria. I'm one of the account managers of Valatam. And here with me is Dan. Dan Baker is the CEO and the founder of Valatam. That means basically Virtual Assistants Latin America. We basically provide talented college graduated people to help business people and entrepreneurs, business owners and entrepreneurs to save time by delegating part of their businesses, part of their company's operations to a remote team member. So we basically recruit people from Venezuela, which is a South American country, and we provide several types of assistance, basically anything that can be done online. So that's how this goes. I think I will ask Dan to keep going, but thanks again.
Excellent intro, Victoria. Thank you very much. So yeah, Victoria is one of 4 account managers we have, and she's been amazing. And I think she's a really good example of the types of team member we work with and the types of professional that you can hire in Venezuela. So how did we find you, Victoria? How did you come to work with us?
Actually, it was through LinkedIn.
Okay, so that's one of our recruitment techniques. So we recruit partly through academic partnerships, partly through direct referral from our existing employees, and also through traditional recruitment techniques such as LinkedIn. But Victoria was a fully qualified lawyer, so she completed her law degree in Venezuela, and then you were working for, I guess, 6 or 7 years as an attorney in Caracas. And then we found you on LinkedIn and we recruited you for Valatam, and the rest is history. But like I said, she's a very good example of the type of people we work with. So we're exclusively hiring bilingual college graduates, almost exclusively from Venezuela. But a lot of our team are now living in places like Argentina, Colombia, Peru, Bolivia, Ecuador, Chile, mostly Latin American countries. So in the same time zone as the US. But south of the border. So yeah, thank you for the intro, Victoria. I'm just thinking where to begin because you made some good points about Valatam. Perhaps people would be interested to know how we came to be, like my story and how I started Valatam and why. So originally I'm from the UK and I emigrated to Mexico in 2010. And I was working in the international finance industry. And what I did was, firstly, I read a book called The 4-Hour Workweek, which is written by Tim Ferriss, the best book ever. My best friend recommended it to me. He sent it to me in an email saying, this book will change your life. And I think it's the book that really did change my life the most. And in the book, Tim Ferriss talks about using virtual assistants to delegate parts of your job or parts of your business so that you can save time and focus on other parts of your business or other parts of your life if you don't want to work so much. So what I did was I hired 2 virtual assistants in the Philippines to help me with my job, which was business development for an international financial consultancy. So very good book, Shameka, best one ever. So what they did is they were searching for potential leads for my employer on LinkedIn, and they were finding their contact information. They were contacting them and asking if they'd be interested in our services. And on top of that, they were helping me with all the repetitive time-consuming administration. And that freed up more of my time to focus on sales. So that was a bit hit and miss at the beginning. I wasn't sure if it was going to work, and I was paying for these virtual assistants from my own salary. And after a few months, it really took off and I doubled my sales in the company. And one day my boss took me for lunch And I thought I was in trouble, but he said, like, how are you doing this? Because I hadn't told him I'd hired virtual assistants and delegated half of my job to the VAs. So I told him about it. And instead of getting in trouble, he said, that's fantastic. Can you do that for the rest of the consultants in Mexico? So I kind of was given this new role in the company that hadn't existed previously, which was that of outsourcing director. And over the next 2 years, I grew a team of 16 virtual assistants in the Philippines. And I hired them and I trained them and I supervised them in helping my employer with their business activities. So helping them with administration, customer service, lead generation, sales, and executive assistance. I then came to Venezuela quite by chance, and this was back in 2015, and Venezuela was in the depths of a really big financial recession. So there were very few employment opportunities locally, and also those jobs that did exist, they were being paid in bolivars, which was the local currency, and it was undergoing hyperinflation. So just to give you an idea of that, when I first moved to Venezuela in 2015, $1 got you 80 bolivars. Victoria, how many bolivars does a dollar get you now? Do you even know?
4 million, I think. Yeah.
4 million. So you can imagine the inflation percentage. And in that time, they've done 2 devaluations. And a devaluation involves taking between 3 and 5 zeros off of the currency. So add another 6 to 10 zeros onto that number and you get an idea of the inflation. So I was coming from this outsourcing background of outsourcing jobs to the Philippines, and I arrived in Venezuela where there were not many employment opportunities and horrible hyperinflation in the local currency. So I had the idea of moving the operations to Venezuela, and I developed a call center in a city called Merida, which is about 10 hours away from where I currently live in Caracas, the capital. That worked really well for a while, and we grew the team. And I worked with 3 investment brokers in Mexico. And then about another year later, I went independent and I started Valatam as a company. So Valatam stands for Virtual Assistants Latin America. And Victoria kind of told you what we're about. So the mission of the company, there's 2 missions. One is to save time and money for entrepreneurs in the markets we serve. So that's USA, Canada, and Europe and the UK. And then on the other side, we're about giving living wage jobs to people here locally in Venezuela and in other parts of Latin America. The statistic that's very hard to believe or to get your head around is that the smallest salary we pay to our team members here in Venezuela is more than 100 times the minimum wage in Venezuela. So that speaks a lot about the local conditions here, but it also speaks a lot about the type of professional you can employ if you're paying 100 times the average salary. So like, I think in the US, it would be what, 1,500, 2,000 as the average salary. So imagine if you suddenly had 150,000 to 200,000 to play around with, what type of professionals you could hire. So that's why we've grown so quickly in Venezuela, because we're paying living wage salaries in US dollars, and we're hiring bilingual university graduates in the country and giving them work from home opportunities with international startups, mostly in the US. I'm very conscious that I'm blabbing a lot, and I've essentially told the story of how Valatam came to be. Shameka, shall I open it up to questions, or should I explain about what we do, like what we help with?
I think you should talk a little bit about what you guys help with, and a little bit as far as like what types of virtual assistance roles would be. For
sure. So essentially, the short answer to that is we will do any online or telephone-based activity, but we have focused in several areas that we found we can be more successful. Thank you, Victoria or Shameka, whoever's sharing our one-pager. The most common role that we help customers with would be that of an executive assistant. So typically we're working with the owner or the CEO of a small business. It could be a 1-person business or a 50-person business, but it's working as the executive assistant to the founder, the CEO, or the owner, helping them with all the different time-consuming repetitive tasks which come up on a daily basis. And they typically involve lots of these things you can see on the screen. So things like administration, operations, secretary jobs, so like answering the phone or booking your meetings or managing your calendar. Customer service, it depends on the client's business. So if they have lots of clients and the customer service takes a lot of time, often they'll hire a VA to assist them in that area. HR tasks and recruiting is another common one. We work with recruitment companies in the USA, and we help them with the time-consuming parts of the sourcing and recruitment processes. Lead generation is a very big one. I think lead generation is a prime example of the type of task that it's very easy to utilize a VA, because 90% of sales is highly repetitive, monotonous tasks. It's repeating the same process, sending the same message to lots of different people. So it doesn't make sense for the CEO or a US-based core team member of your business to be doing those activities when they can be delegated to a lower cost outsourced employee in Latin America. Project management's another one. I think the job of an executive assistant is often project management because it's helping the CEO or the founder with all their different tasks each day. Online research is another common one, often very time consuming, that can be delegated to a virtual assistant. Social media management, we have different types. So we have general assistants who can help with the basic stuff, or if the client needs a social media specialist or a marketing specialist, we provide that. And that would be someone who's studied communication, publicity, or marketing at university and has at least 2 years experience in the field. Bookkeeping, it's the same. Basic bookkeeping could be done by a general VA, or if you need someone with an accounting degree, then we could provide a specialist accountant. Graphic design is always a specialist position, and technology positions are usually done on a custom basis. So if the client needs a software developer, then they'd give us the job description and we go out and find that professional from our extended network.
Okay. And I know we have some people on the call who are just listening and who want to use the chat. So if you have questions you want to ask in the chat, feel free to drop them in the chat and I'll chime in and share the question. And if you want to ask a question, you can. And then at the end, I'll share my experience. And I think we also have Dee Marie, who kind of brought me to Valatam, and maybe she can share her experience as well.
Cool. Victoria, what very important things would you usually explain in a discovery call with someone who's interested in hiring a VA that I didn't explain? I guess things like how we track time, how we ensure that team members are working, things like that.
Yes. So one of the most important questions that many people that haven't worked with a virtual assistant before is, how can we make sure that they are actually working on the project? So we use a time and activity tracking software who's called HubStuff. This software records any hours that the team member spends working on the project. It also records the activity levels, how many times they use the mouse or the keyboard. And it also takes random screenshots. For some people, it could be kind of invasive thing, but is a way we can make sure that the team member is working on the project, basically. So that's one of the most common questions we have. About the minimum project size could be the other one. We have team members that are available for full-time positions. That's the case for 40 hours or more per week. And we have part-time available team members. That's the case for 20 to 39 hours per week. So that means that you can have either a virtual assistant working 4 hours on average per day on your project, or a full-time virtual assistant working on the project. So we basically engage with projects that are at least 20 hours per week. and we basically try to discover in the discovery call what needs do you currently have, what things you need help with. So that's how we draft a job description that can involve several areas of your business, different tasks, different responsibilities. So we try to give ideas on what type of tasks you can delegate, because we know that the first time you start working with someone, maybe you can be a little bit of hesitate, like how many hours do I actually need help with? Should I engage with a virtual assistant for 20 hours per week? So when you think about it, you may have a lot of things that you are currently doing, and you don't have enough time to focus on what you need to focus in order to grow your business, or to maybe focus on getting new clients. So once you think about it, it is likely that you may have different areas that you may need help with, and that could take at least the 20 hours per week. So that's another thing we try to discuss in a discovery call. Yes.
How do we pay VAs, Victoria? Is it weekly? Was a question from Alicia.
How do we pay the VAs? We pay them on a monthly basis. After the
sorry to interrupt you again. I think she means by the phrasing of the question, like how does a client pay the VAs rather than how do we pay the VAs?
Okay, sorry. Yes, let me check the chat. Okay, so so all payments need to go through Valatam as the agency. So basically you hire our services, and I mean, we do like the two part of the engagement. We find the virtual assistant, we train the virtual assistant before putting him or her forward for a client's vacancy, and we also find the client. So basically we are the agency that takes care of all payments, all the working benefits or labor benefits. So you don't need to pay anyone directly. So you will pay us as the agency, and we will take care of the VA's salary. Yes, that's how we.
And so just to elaborate on that, so the clients pay for the service on a prepaid basis at the beginning of each month. So if you're hiring, I'll make up some numbers, and each month it changes because there's a different volume of working days in each month. But let's imagine that a month has 4 weeks in it. We would bill, if it's a part-time VA working 20 hours a week, we would bill for 80 hours at the beginning of the month to be worked. The client would pay, and then Valatam holds those funds throughout the month while the VA actually goes through the month completing the hours using the time tracking software. And then after the work is done at the end of the month, we pay the VA their salary. So that's our billing model. We accept payments through a payment processor called bill.com. Really good if you guys haven't heard of it. It's really good for processing ACH payments, and it links with QuickBooks, so it helps with your bookkeeping. And we bill through autopay. So the client sets up the payment the first time, and then they authorize us to bill them for the upcoming invoices. And then we send invoices each month, and bill.com automatically pulls the funds. So essentially the clients only need to actually manually pay us for the first invoice, and then everything's automatic. That being said, of course, we send the client the invoice each month showing them how many projected hours we're billing them for. And then if the VA had to take a day off because they were sick, for example, we would deduct those hours that weren't worked and discount them from the next invoice. So when a VA can't complete their hours because of a personal reason, we deduct those hours from the next invoice. If, however, the client doesn't have enough tasks to give to the VA to fill up their hours, we do still treat those hours as worked and pay them to the VA because we've reserved their time to complete the activities. I think a really good question which hasn't been asked would be, where where do our VAs come from? Like, what type of people do we hire, and how do we vet them? Like, how do we make sure that they're good enough to work with our clients? So I kind of explained how we recruit. So that's through academic partnerships with the top universities in Venezuela. Also a lot through direct referrals from our existing employees. So all of our team members are bilingual. So they're all native Spanish speakers, but they also speak English to an advanced degree. That's not normal in Latin America to speak advanced English. And what we've found over the last 5 years is once you find one person who's bilingual and speaks amazing English, often their social circles are also bilingual. So we've actually grown our team a lot through direct referrals from our existing employees. And then thirdly, we recruit people through things like LinkedIn, local job portals, and also through our social media platforms, which are quite big in Venezuela. Once someone passes our application process, which involves 9 steps and 3 levels of interviews, we invite them to take part in a 1-month paid trial. This is the Valatam trial, and it's run by Liliana, who's unfortunately not here this evening, but she's lovely. And she basically supervises the trial team for 4 weeks, and she jumps in daily calls with them every morning, and she assigns them tasks to do that day. And then she jumps in calls with them individually throughout the day, and then there's another team huddle at the end of the day. And we use this trial not only to see how the VAs perform in terms of like the hard skills and the results of the activities assigned, but also to see how their soft skills are. So one very uncommon thing in Latin America, unfortunately, is punctuality. So it's not common that someone is punctual. And obviously working online or working for a US business is super important, but to have punctuality. So during the trial, we're making sure that every single day, the team members arrive on time. And that way we weed out any people who aren't punctual and professional in the way they work. We're also looking for good communicators, people who show a sense of initiative, people who work productively, obviously, people that when they get stuck, they're not scared to ask questions. So they communicate with you and they ask intelligent questions on how they can proceed. People who have a really good level of English. So we test their written and spoken English, and obviously their listening as well. And we assign them lots of typical tasks that they might face as a VA. Victoria, did you go through the trial? I believe you did.
Yes, definitely.
What types of tasks did we give you on the trial, or did Liliana give you?
So the thing is that many of our VAs, including me, come from a different academic background than a virtual assistant. I mean, many of them have been virtual assistants and have worked as a virtual assistant. But for example, I used to work in a law firm, and I mean, being an attorney at law was the only thing I knew at the moment I started the trial. So the greatest thing about the trial is that I had the opportunity to learn about different type of typical tasks that a VA faces. Yes, like project management. They using a project management tool like Asana, Trello, organizing activities, assigning responsible people, tracking the activities until completed, or creating basic content using Canva, for example, for social media posts, writing blogs. Well, there were a lot of different tasks, like lead generation tasks through LinkedIn, customer service, different tasks like responding to a customer's hypothetical inquiry or something. So every month that we start a new trial, Lily, who is the trial manager, makes sure that she creates like a new type or a new task or a new daily task, basically. So email marketing, for example, was one of the ideas that I gave her a couple of weeks ago. Like, hey, it would be nice if during the trial, the VA can learn basic principles of using MailChimp, for example. That's a common task that our clients ask the VA to perform. So yes, there are different things that we do during the trial, but I think those are the ones that I remember. But
Perfect.
yes.
Thank you for shedding some light on that. And I think as the account manager, you're probably the ideal person to explain what is the process for hiring a VA with Valatam. Like,
yes.
So someone does a discovery call with you, and you explain the services and see what they need in a VA, and then what happens?
So the first thing you'll receive from any of Valatam's account managers is the general proposal. The proposal is quite similar to this document you're watching in the screen. So it basically contains all the billing rates or pricing information, payment methods, the benefits of working with one of our VAs, and a lot of important information. Along with the proposal, we share our outsourcing services agreement that contains a lot of important clauses related to the working relationship. It also contains a non-solicitation clause. That means that you cannot basically hire directly the virtual assistant. So the working relationship would be between us as the agencies and the virtual assistant. So whenever you are ready to see some candidate profiles based on a job description that we will draft or try to during our call, we will ask you to sign the contract, and then in a couple of days, we will send you the resumes and intro audios, introduction audios of the team members that we consider might be a good fit for the position based on those on that information that we discussed during the call. So it is basically really fast. If you like any of these candidates that we send you, then it would be just a matter of setting up an intro call by Zoom, a 15-20-minute call to meet the virtual assistants or the candidates. If you like any of the candidates, then we will just set up the starting date. If not, that can happen, then we will try to find the best match for the position, and we will take a look at our pool of talent and send you some other candidates. Basically, the idea is that you get to know the candidate or the potential team members, and that you can choose the one that you like the most, basically. So I would say that if you're ready to see some candidates and you like any of them, it could take a week or so to set up the project on an ideal scenario. Obviously, it could take longer if you're not ready, but yes, that's basically the process.
Right. And one of the things that I liked about the process was I was able to see a couple of different candidates, resumes, have the conversation with Victoria about what I was looking for, as well as what's important to me. So a lot of times we don't take out the time to think about, hey, what do I need help with? Maybe because we don't know what we need help with because we're juggling so many things. But it took for me, and DeMarie, you can share your experience. It took for me maybe about a week to kind of see the resumes, have the conversation, kind of think through the things that I wanted a virtual assistant to be working on that made sense for them to do virtually, and they can kind of work independently. And a few things that they highlighted earlier, I think Dan highlighted it, was around having someone do HR and recruiting tasks, which are super important for NOSAs. I haven't gotten to the lead generation, but it's definitely something that I would want to do. So I spend most of my time with my VA on project management, online research, social media. Jesus has done an amazing job with Canva. He's kind of taken it on and really run with it. And then, of course, some calendar management. So a big part of what I'm working on is projects right now. But the versatility has really made a big impact so that you're not afraid to give them a little bit more. And as they mentioned, one of the platforms that we use to manage it all is through Trello. And I know I've spoken so many times to you guys about technology, but it really helps you keep track of everything, so that you know what they're doing, they know what they're supposed to be doing, and then you kind of check in different ways throughout the week. I do a weekly meeting, and that's usually the only time that me and Jesus need to talk, the once a week, check in, and then we may message throughout the day. And I think, the time frame is great. I feel like, the results and the products that I'm getting back, that he's working on is good. Okay, yeah, Sharia, Trello is awesome, is helpful, and it's been a huge game changer for me this month because I'm taking on so many projects and I don't feel like I'm carrying the whole weight of everything through the month. And I've also been able to identify things that I can really take off of my plate and put onto my virtual assistant's plate. So Dee Marie, did you want to share your experience at all? She's actually the one who introduced me to Valatam.
Hi, Dee Marie.
Hi,
Hey,
Marie.
how are you guys doing?
Very good.
Hey. Hold on one second for me.
And then a couple of other things.
Okay.
Okay. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Shamika. Let me.
No,
I
I was going to talk.
real quick.
I was going to talk a bit about the lead generation. So I've talked, and they gave an amazing example about how they were able to connect to their virtual assistants through LinkedIn. Understanding LinkedIn, or having a virtual assistant that understands LinkedIn and can kind of help you maneuver through that process to make connections, is so important, because there's so many opportunities out there that you're really missing on if you're not actively managing and using your LinkedIn. So I just wanted to, give kudos to them for kind of sharing their own experience with LinkedIn, because I talk about it all the time. But sometimes if you're not on there, it can feel a little bit overwhelming to jump on there and really maneuver.
LinkedIn saved Valatam last year.
Yeah.
100%. So like when quarantine hit back in March, a lot of our businesses were semi-technology, like our clients' businesses were semi-technology, but also semi-physical businesses. So we had companies that were like kind of like the Uber of personal trainers. So they would link their customers with personal trainers in their area. And we also had event organization businesses. So obviously those types of things just stopped overnight once the lockdown started. And they all had to stop services with their VAs. So rather than let those VAs go, we gave them jobs with Valatam, and we trained them how to do lead generation for us. So we already had a tried and tested process with LinkedIn, and we basically had them manage a LinkedIn account for 4 hours a day and just message founders of businesses again and again and again. So at that time, we were reaching out to 500 founders of businesses in the US per week per account, and we had 7 accounts doing it. So that's 3,500 leads per week. So we were reaching out to massive numbers of people. At one time, I was doing 8 sales calls per day. So I was 4 hours. I think this, like, you started with us, Victoria, towards the end of this phase when it was just getting too much for me. And I was like, right, this is working, but I can no longer continue to do this many sales calls per day, because an intro call takes 30 minutes, but then you need to do the proposal, and that takes a half an hour, and then you need to talk with the HR manager and the trial manager to see which of our team members are best suited to their vacancy, and then you need to do intro calls and all the coordination. So there's a lot of other work besides just talking with the potential customer. So at that time, it would, for a few months, it was kind of like we were selling a lot through LinkedIn, but we were also having a lot of clients who were being affected by COVID and they were stopping. So that enabled us to keep a balance. Like we didn't grow and we didn't shrink for about 3 or 4 months after COVID hit. And then I think it was in August that we really started to recover because we were still making those sales through LinkedIn. And also things started to stabilize in the world. So people realized it wasn't the end of the world and they started, you know, keeping their VAs essentially and keeping on business as usual. And that's when we really grew. And then towards the end of last year, we were able to take on Victoria and Richard as account managers. And we've grown a lot since then, thanks to your hard work, Victoria. So yeah, LinkedIn, incredibly powerful because it enables you to reach out.
That's how you guys found me. It was through LinkedIn.
Was it?
Yeah.
So it works and it's a numbers game. It's
Yeah, Dan,
hard.
that was like, you guys messaged me. Yeah, yeah.
And sometimes,
What were you gonna say?
like, sometimes it's just not the right time. So a lot of people say, actually, it sounds interesting, but talk to me in 6 months. And we have a CRM, so we make a note to contact that person again in 6 months, and we reach out again and say, hey, are you ready to look at hiring a VA now? And often they say yes. But it's strictly a numbers game. If you reach out to enough people, you're eventually going to say hello to someone who has been looking for a VA. And that happens sometimes. Like they say, are you reading my mind? Like I've been looking for a VA this week and you messaged me at the exact right time. So yeah, it's got harder LinkedIn now because they've decreased the amount of people you can reach out to. So last year we were reaching out to 500 people per week per account. And now LinkedIn has kind of capped it at about 100. There's ways around it by like reaching out to people who are in groups you're in and things like that. But it's much harder to reach that volume. But it's still a fantastic task to give to your VA because it's very easy and simple to train. And then when your VA has downtime, like if you don't have any other activities for them, you can just say, reach out to some potential customers on LinkedIn for an hour. Or you can have them do it for one hour every day. And it's a good background task that they can revert back to if they're waiting for your answer in order to carry on with another task or if they don't have anything else to do.
I think we had a question from Antrina about can they work for more than one business? Like some of the people here may own like a healthcare staffing agency and a home care. But from my understanding, it's more task-based. So it's, you know, whoever pays the invoice is that company, and then the person kind of manages the task for those companies.
Yeah, exactly. So we even have customers that are paying us for the time of the VA, and then they have the VA do tasks for several of their customers, and then they even bill them out at separate rates. So that's fine. So long as there's one person responsible for paying the invoices and managing the team member, then it's fine for them to split the activities between different businesses. We even have clients, we have a brother and sister clients, and they both have online e-commerce businesses. So they're in similar industries, and they hired a social media VA to help them develop the social media of both of their e-commerce businesses. And I think they have her working 20 hours. So she does 10 hours for one of them and 10 hours for the other one each week.
Alicia's asking, how long is the contract?
There is no employment contract. So you don't have any obligations or liabilities with the team member. You're not responsible for paying their taxes or for paying their medical or for hiring them for 12 months or 6 months. You're free to stop the services at any time. We do ask for 14 days notice after the first month. But during the first month, because people are sometimes not sure how it's going to go, we say that you're able to stop the service at any time during the first month, and we'd refund you for any hours that were not worked. So if you started with a full-time VA, we don't bill the first week until after we've completed the first week's hours. And then after the first week's hours have been completed, we bill them for the first month. And then if, for example, you suddenly changed your mind and you wanted to stop after 2 weeks, then we've billed you for a full month. So we'd refund you the 2 weeks that haven't been worked.
And I also wanted to touch on the example that Dan gave about the brother sister that are working together. That's also an option for NOSAs. Like me and Dee Marie share a virtual assistant. So he does 20 hours with her, he does 20 hours with me. And one of the nice things about that is that it allows him to kind of get a better feel for the industry. So even though we definitely have him working on some different things, so some of the things he does with her aren't the same things he does for me, but it gives him a more well-rounded understanding of kind of how the industry works, the different layers to it. So that's also an option to you guys as NOSAs, because I know some of you guys work with accountability partners or things like that, where if, you know, social media was your thing, or, you know, getting leads, which is essentially the lead generation they're mentioning for clients is your thing, you could potentially work with another NOSA as long as that one person, whomever it is, will be responsible for paying whatever the invoiced hours are.
Exactly. Or if it was a full time, like if it was 20 hours and 20 hours, then it reaches our minimum. So it could be done as 2 separate projects with 2 people billing, 2 people paying, sorry. But if it was a 20-hour-a-week project between 2 people, then the VA could work for 10 hours for one person and 10 hours for the other. But just for ease of administration on our part, we do ask one person to be responsible for the invoices.
And if you have any questions as we're wrapping up, feel free to take yourself off of mute and ask the question. I know we have some people that have been asking questions in the chat. Dan and Victoria, if you guys could drop your contact information in the chat so that everybody has it. It's actually, I'll move some of the presentation into the group for people to contact you as well, for some of the people that weren't able to attend.
For sure. I'll put my email here.
Okay. We got another question. How do you know how many hours you would need for a VA?
That's a really good question, actually. So usually clients are delegating tasks that they're already doing. So usually that gives them an idea of how long things should take. I always add a bit of time onto that, because if you've been doing these activities day in, day out for several months or years, you're obviously going to be faster than a virtual assistant who's just started. But I would estimate how long things should take based on how long you take doing those activities. And then once you have the VA assigned, you usually do the onboarding during the first days and encourage regular training sessions to teach the VA how to do the tasks which you're accustomed to doing. We recommend doing that through Zoom because it's very easy to share screen, and also it has the recording function, so you can record the calls and the VA can look back at the recordings. Because if you're training someone for 4 hours on the first day, there's no way they're going to retain 100% of that information that you say to them on the first day. So it's really good to record the calls. And also, if you ever no longer want to work with your VA, or if the VA decides to leave, that would help in the training of the replacement VA. And that strikes on another really important question that we often get, is like, what happens if the VA quits? It happens very rarely because of the situation I explained in Venezuela, it being very hard to find local jobs that pay in US dollars. So we're very competitive as an employer. Occasionally people do leave. And when that happens, we ask for 2 weeks notice and we assign a new VA, and the old VA teaches the new VA as many tasks as possible in that 2 weeks transition period. And we only bill for one of the VAs during that time. So it's not like the client has to pay double for the training time when it was them that was inconvenienced by the VA leaving. Hourly costs, it depends on the position. 90% of what we do is billed as a general bilingual VA. These professionals are billed at $9.99 per hour based on full time. So that's 40 hours plus per week. Anything less than that, so 20 to 39 hours per week, is billed at $10.99 per hour. Specialists are billed between $12 and $20 per hour, and it depends on the profile. So specialists would count as like graphic designers, social media specialists, accountants, senior project managers, very senior executive VAs. And it would depend on their salary expectations, their geographical location, how many years they've been working, things like that. And then we also do tech talent, which is when the client has a technology vacancy, and that's billed between, you know, it depends, anything from $15 to $40 per hour, depending on the position. But most of what we do is general bilingual assistants, and they're billed between $9.99 and $10.99 per hour. So that's for the university educated bilingual professionals. And they come from diverse backgrounds, but common ones are business administration graduates. We have a lot of lawyers, law graduates, a lot of psychologists, mass communication, business studies, modern languages is a common one because they speak very good English, but quite diverse academic backgrounds from the top universities in Venezuela. Can we start the process now with finding the right fit September 1st? Yeah, usually our process takes sometimes slightly less than a week, and I'd say maximum 2 weeks. Victoria kind of explained it, but it goes discovery call, proposal and contract, submission of potential team members, meeting the team members, and then project kickoff. So if that's all done quite quickly, it can be done in the space of a week. So definitely it could be started by the 1st of September.
Perfect. Like for me,
Yeah,
it took a few days. Go ahead, Dee Marie.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. I was gonna say it took me a few days, like once I finally made up my mind, and I could probably kick myself because I waited so long to make the decision to to get a VA. But what I will tell you guys, if you are sitting over there and contemplating whether you have enough hours for your VA to actually complete, I promise you, once you start working with a VA and you get comfortable and you start offloading some of your stuff, you will realize the value that they provide and how much, and like coming up with the 20 hours worth of work is, or whatever number, if you decide to do 40, coming up with that amount of work is probably not going to be a difficult task for you. It's just about getting used to the process and learning how to delegate some of the things. Because I think so many of us are just so used to doing everything ourselves. But once you start to have the confidence in a VA, then you'll recognize that there's so much more that you can offload and then spend more time, working on growing your business.
Totally. And it's very addictive once you start delegating and you start saving that time. It's like a snowball, and before you know it, you're doing like what would have taken you 100 hours, you're getting done in a regular working week because you've got these 2 VAs helping you.
Yes. I'm just saying, I don't know what I'd do without my VA.
I'd recommend everyone to read the 4-Hour Work Week, because that's what really inspired me to actually start delegating my workload to someone else. Because if you're, let's say, like, if you're earning $20 an hour and you can hire someone just as efficient as you for $10 an hour and delegate your 8 hours of work a day to them, okay, you're spending half of your money, but you've freed up your 40 hours a week, and then you can focus those 40 hours per week on growing your business. So it's quite like it's very simple when you look at the numbers. Provided you've got someone who's good at doing your tasks, which is our job to find that person, then it really pays its dividends very early because of the time and money it saves you.
And I would say too, one of the things about like kind of getting addicted to the delegation is true, because then you become a lot more organized, because then you start to think about, what are the things I'm doing that somebody else can do? And then you save way more time, and then you use that extra time that you have, or the time that you were spending doing all that extra work yourself, doing more important things. I think Dan touched on it, to grow the business. I know a lot of you guys talk about wanting to grow and expand. But if your work processes and your workflows aren't quite strong, it's harder to do that, because the little things that kind of took you longer, as you add more employees or more states and things of that nature, will kind of compound. So it'll be more of a, oh, well, it took me 2 hours or an hour to do this post. Now I have to do 3 posts. Now it's 3 hours. So really kind of determining what you do all day is what I did to kind of help me think, okay, so I do all of these things all day. What is something that this person can do that I don't need to be doing?
Totally.
I think Antrin had another question about, if you start at 20 hours and you need to add more hours per week, how do you go about increasing to 40 hours?
That's also an amazing question. It's tricky because we've got responsibilities to the clients and also responsibilities to the team. So if our team member is available full time and we assign them a client who only needs them for 20 hours a week, we still need to find work for them for the other 20 hours. So we usually assign them to another client. And this occasionally happens that the original client then 2 months down the line says, I really love the work my VA is doing. I want to move to full time. And no longer can the VA work full time because they've been assigned another client. So my recommendation is, if you think you've got the workload to hire someone full time, start with full time, and you can always decrease. And that's something I do internally at Valatam. Victoria, to begin with, she didn't have any clients, any accounts to manage. So I didn't need her for 40 hours per week, but I knew she had the potential to be an amazing account manager, which she is. So I hired her for 40 hours per week from the first day. And what did I do? I think we got you to do like a rotation between all our different areas so that you could truly understand how the business works. So you spent time with the recruiters, you spent time with Liliana, helping her supervise the trial. You spent time with me learning like the sales process and how to do intro calls. You did lead generation, you did a lot of LinkedIn lead gen and finding email addresses online and things like that.
Draft proposals, it was a lot of work. Yeah, but
so that is tricky. If you only wanted to start at 20 hours per week, but you thought further down the line you'd have 40. In most cases, the VAs get placed very quickly. So chances are the same VA wouldn't be available to expand their hours. And in that case, we'd assign you an additional VA to work another 20 hours. And it's always better to work with one person 40 hours than it is to work with 2 people for 20 hours each, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Shamika, so that means you're gonna have to give me back Jesus.
No, we're gonna have to share him for life, Dee Marie. I'm sorry. We're already
unless it depends the tasks, because maybe in your business you need some social media assistance and you need some account management, project management work. And usually a social media person is more of a creative profile. So they're not usually the best person to do account management or processes. And also they probably don't enjoy that work. So sometimes it can work better to have 2 different people working 20 hours per week each if they have different soft skills. But if it's just doing customer service or just doing account management or just doing executive assistance, I recommend having one person full-time over 2 people part-time.
Okay, any other questions? And one thing I would recommend you guys to do maybe over the weekend is really sit down and write down your task. So that'll kind of, and how much time you spend doing it. And that'll really help you determine where to start, as well as your tech savvy piece. That sometimes can kind of determine if you need 40 versus 20. I think that was kind of the case for the 2 of us a little bit. So I don't see any questions in the chat or anybody ready to talk. So I want to first thank you guys so much for taking out the time to talk with everybody. It's been a great conversation. You guys shared some amazing information, some information that I didn't even know. And if you guys want to reach out to them, definitely feel free to do so. Their information will be saved in the group, and it's also here on the chat. And set up a call. If you have more questions, definitely set up a call with Victoria or one of the other account managers, or will it just be Victoria? Maybe. Okay.
Yeah,
I think it
we
would just be
can figure it
Victoria,
out.
yeah.
Okay, perfect. And get some of your questions answered and figure out some information, as well as if you want to bring someone else in, if you wanted to share a VA, you know, maybe the both of you guys can get on the call if they aren't able to be here as well. And thank you guys again. Thank you, Victoria. Thank you, Dan. I know you guys are
And if
on.
you guys have any questions like about like our experience with our VAs, you can
Yes.
reach out to Shamika and I. Like if you guys want to know like how we're working with our VA, feel free to, you know, touch base with us. You guys know that I showed you my Trello board and how we communicate back and forth. So again,
Yeah.
if you want to learn Trello and how to work with your VA, we'll help you with that too.
Awesome. Thank
I-
yes.
Thank
I
you,
was gonna-
Shamika.
I was going to ask one favor quickly. Perhaps it could facilitate people for people if they had our one pager. So maybe Victoria can paste our one pager in the call. I think you can attach files in Zoom,
Yes.
and and that also has a booking link for if anyone wants to schedule a one-on-one with Victoria to have a chat with her.
Awesome.
I don't know if you have it handy, Victoria.
Yes. 36. Wait.
I have mine ready, but it's got my booking link, and people will be booking calls with you, I think so.
Perfect.
And while we're waiting for Victoria, my other book recommendation.
Let's see. You're gonna have to leave it in the
Traction.
chat. What's the author?
Yeah, I've never heard of that one.
Gino
G-I-N.
Wickman.
Okay. What? Get a grip on your
Wickman.
bit.
Get a grip
Oh,
on-
okay. Okay. I'll drop it in the chat too.
And we work with a lot of clients who are in an organization called EO, which is Entrepreneurs Organization. I think there's 16,000 members around the world, and many of them run their business on that book, and it's incredibly easy to place VAs with them. I think in large part because the book explains about 6 parts of the business, and one of them is processes, and it goes on and on about documenting your processes. And when we place a qualified VA with a client who's got all their processes documented, it's super easy because the VA knows what to do, and they're much more successful in the project.
Okay.
So
What's
that's
the
my
last
second
name?
book recommendation. Gino Wickman.
Wakeman. Okay. Okay. All right. All right. And I'll share it with you guys as well. Thank you guys so much. I hope you have an amazing weekend and a great evening. Thanks for your time, and definitely reach out. And I'll share Victoria's information in the group as well.
Thank you, Shamika.
Awesome.
Thank
Dan.
you. Have a good
Thank you for
night.
having us, Shameka. Good to see you again, Dee Marie.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Good seeing you
Good
too,
night,
Dan.
all.